All right, get ready, because we're going to deep dive into Melania Trump's perspective. Just 1 week before the election, this Fox News interview gives us a pretty fascinating look at her thoughts as she potentially steps back into that First Lady role.
Yeah, and I think it's fascinating because she acknowledges, this campaign feels different, but she also points to a familiar energy. She even compares the support for her husband now to what she saw back in 2016.
Yeah, she talks about how overwhelming the support is and connects it back to that broader sentiment that people want to return to prosperity, the American dream. Almost like she's tapping into a very specific nostalgia, I think.
Right, and I think it resonates with a certain segment of voters for sure, because it's strategic. She's not really talking about policy. She's talking about a feeling,
A yearning for a better time.
a perceived better time. But what I find really interesting is she says that she feels more prepared this time around.
More prepared. She even uses the phrase, "this time is different." It makes you wonder, what exactly has she learned, from her previous experience as First Lady, and how that might translate into a different approach if she returns to the White House.
Yeah, and how will that shape her decisions?
It's interesting to consider the level of control a First Lady actually has, the power to actually shape their own role. But then she kind of throws us a curveball by revealing that she's actually felt betrayed.
Betrayed.
Yeah, by people she trusted.
Oh, wow. This is where the interview gets really personal, I think. She describes the recording and editing of her private phone calls as like a historical disgrace, something that should never happen.
It's powerful. It raises so many questions. Like, who betrayed her?
Right.
What was the context of these calls? And why would someone go to such lengths to expose her private conversations?
And how has that impacted her view, of the political landscape? Did it make her more guarded?
More distrustful.
Yeah. It's easy to forget sometimes that behind that public persona, these are real people dealing with real emotions.
And human experiences. Yeah, and it's even more striking when you contrast this vulnerability with her discussion of unfinished business in the White House.
Oh, that's interesting.
It suggests a resilience,
Yeah,
a determination,
I see what you're saying.
even in the face of personal setbacks.
So this phrase, unfinished business, what does it mean for her? Is it about specific policies, things she wants to champion, or is it something more?
A broader vision for the country.
Yeah.
And she's not shying away from the fact that 2025 will bring new challenges.
New challenges.
Yeah, it's almost a reminder that even if her husband wins, there are unforeseen obstacles to overcome.
It speaks to, I think, a certain level of pragmatism, recognizing that the future is never guaranteed, right? But it also adds this element of suspense. Like, what are these challenges? How will she and her husband navigate them?
Right, and then she drops a bombshell. A statement so stark, it kind of sends chills down your spine. When she talks about the heightened danger of this campaign
Heightened danger.
compared to the previous ones. She even referenced the assassination attempts on her husband.
Wow. It's scary to think about. Those very real threats? Especially for someone as polarizing as Donald Trump. And it makes her heightened vigilance completely understandable.
Makes sense that she's being selective about public appearances.
Yeah.
She even says, "You never know." Such a haunting phrase. Really speaks volumes about the fear
Yeah, the fear and uncertainty.
that she and her family must live with.
And think about the psychological impact of constantly being on guard, never knowing when or where a threat might emerge.
It's a heavy burden.
Yeah.
And speaking of burdens, she doesn't shy away from addressing the elephant in the room, the rhetoric surrounding her husband, and those comparisons to Hitler.
What does she say about that?
She rejects those comparisons, stating unequivocally that her husband is not Hitler. She frames his supporters as simply wanting a successful country, a thriving America.
It's clever, a way to deflect criticism.
Appeal to patriotism.
Yeah, and she's essentially saying, look, we all want the best for our country, right? And she thinks her husband can deliver that.
It's an attempt to reframe the narrative. Instead of focusing on the divisive rhetoric or the controversies, she's emphasizing that shared goal, that common ground.
I see.
Then she dives into what I think is a mystery to a lot of people. Why would her husband choose to run again? I mean, given his wealth and the option to retire. It just seems like a valid question.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people asking that.
Her answer is simple. Love for the country.
Love for the country.
She portrays her husband as deeply committed to America's success,
Yeah.
emphasizing his love for the people and his desire to see them prosper.
It's familiar, right?
A message we've heard throughout his career.
Throughout his entire career.
But hearing it from her perspective adds a layer of intimacy, I think.
It does.
A glimpse into their relationship.
And her understanding of his motivations.
And it's a way to humanize him. to present him as more than just a politician.
More than just a politician.
She's painting this picture of a man driven by his beliefs and a genuine desire to serve his country.
Whether you buy into that narrative or not, it's compelling.
And then she drops another unexpected revelation, one that I think sent shockwaves through the media landscape and left a lot of people speechless. Melania Trump declares herself pro-choice.
Oh, wow. This is the moment.
Yeah.
That really caught everyone's attention. It seemed to contradict everything we thought we knew about her husband's stance on abortion. And it raised questions about their relationship, and their values.
She used the phrase, "my body, my choice,"
Yeah.
a phrase loaded with history and meaning,
Yeah.
especially in the context of this ongoing debate
Yeah.
over reproductive rights,
It's a powerful statement. It's impossible to ignore the potential implications.
politically and personally.
Yeah. Does this signal a shift within the Republican Party? Does it challenge our assumptions about the Trump family? How might this impact voters, especially those grappling with this very issue?
And she adds another layer by stating that this wasn't a surprise to her husband, that he's always known her beliefs,
So he's always known.
always respected her beliefs.
That suggests a level of tolerance and understanding within their marriage. That, I think, might surprise some people. It challenges the image of this monolithic power couple.
United on all fronts.
Yeah, instead it suggests that behind closed doors, they actually engage in nuanced conversations and respect each other's perspectives.
Even when they disagree.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. This glimpse into their relationship, reminding us that even within families, there can be a diversity of opinions and beliefs.
Absolutely.
And it makes you wonder, what other surprises Melania might have up her sleeve? She even teases the audience a little bit,
I know.
suggesting they read her book for more details on her pro-choice stance.
Oh, smart move.
But we'll get to the book later. What struck me in this part of the interview was her advice for young mothers, raising children in a society that she describes as challenging.
So she gives parenting advice.
She does.
This is where we see a different side of her, I think. A softer side, maybe. More introspective.
Yeah, she speaks from the heart, sharing her own experiences.
Offering guidance that goes beyond politics,
Her message is about leading with love, treating each child as an individual,
Yeah.
and prioritizing self-healing to break cycles of trauma.
That's powerful. It makes you think about the fact that behind the politics and the media frenzy, there are real people dealing with real issues.
Yeah, parents just trying to do their best to raise kids in a challenging world.
Exactly.
And her willingness to share her perspective on motherhood, her own struggles, it adds a layer of authenticity to this interview.
Authenticity.
It makes her more relatable.
more human.
And it sets the stage for a deeper exploration of her journey as we move into the next part of the interview, where she delves into the challenges she's faced and the lessons she's learned.
Melania hinted earlier about those feelings of betrayal. In this next section, she really gets specific.
Yeah.
And it's eye-opening to hear her talk about it.
Yeah, she revisits that whole thing.
Yeah.
But having her personal phone calls recorded and edited, I can't imagine going through something like that.
It's got to be tough.
She calls it a historical disgrace. Something should never happen to anyone. And you can just hear the pain and anger in her voice.
You can hear it. It's raw. It's powerful. And it makes you think about the level of scrutiny public figures are under and how that impacts their ability to have genuine conversations, private conversations.
Right, like who can you confide in when you're constantly worried about your words being twisted or taken out of context?
Exactly. It's like you're living in a panopticon or something, constantly being watched and judged.
It makes you wonder about the long-term effects on trust, not just for Melania, but for anyone in the public eye.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
And yet, even though she clearly feels betrayed, she still expresses this desire for healing. She wishes those individuals well and hopes they find their purpose.
That's pretty remarkable, considering the circumstances.
It is. There's a sense of grace there,
Yeah.
like a refusal to let bitterness consume her,
It's a stark contrast to the vindictive rhetoric we often see in politics.
where it's all about personal attacks and score settling.
Right.
It's refreshing.
It is.
Makes me wonder if it's a deliberate strategy, that maybe she's trying to position herself as a voice of reason, a figure of compassion in political landscape that's become so toxic.
That's an interesting thought. It
Kinda.
could be a way for her to differentiate herself from her husband's style,
Which can be pretty aggressive.
Yeah. And it might appeal to voters who are tired of the negativity and are looking for something different.
Then the conversation shifts to a more philosophical question, like why?
Why?
Why subject yourself and your family to all this pressure The scrutiny of another campaign,
Especially.
especially when you could just enjoy your wealth
Yeah.
and live a life of peace and privacy.
It's the question I think a lot of people have asked. And Melania gives us, I think, a little glimpse into her husband's thinking. She reiterates that it comes down to his love for the country,
Love for the country.
his desire to see America succeed for all people.
It's a familiar message, one we've heard throughout his career. But hearing it from her perspective, it adds a layer of intimacy. Like a glimpse into their relationship.
And her understanding of his motivations.
Right. It's also a way to humanize him, to present him as more than just a politician.
More than just a politician.
Like she's painting this picture.
Yeah.
Of a man driven by patriotism and a deep belief in the American dream.
It's a narrative that his supporters have embraced.
They're sure.
And it resonates with those who see him as a fighter, someone willing to challenge the status quo.
But then you have those who see him as egotistical, power-hungry, motivated by personal gain.
It's interesting. We have these two very different interpretations, and it comes down to which one you find more compelling.
Right. But it's important to acknowledge that both narratives exist,
They do.
and they shape how people view him and his actions.
It's a reminder that we rely on our own interpretations, our own biases to make sense of the world. We filter information through our pre-existing beliefs, our values, and that shapes how we perceive reality.
And then we come back
Yeah.
to that moment. That really set the internet on fire. Melania's statement about being pro-choice,
Yeah. It was unexpected, caught a lot of people off guard.
she didn't mince words, using the phrase, "my body, my choice,"
A phrase with deep historical and cultural significance.
especially when you think about reproductive rights. It was a powerful declaration,
It was.
and it sparked a lot of debate.
Across the political spectrum.
What's fascinating is that Melania says this wasn't a surprise to her husband, that he's always known and respected her stance on this issue.
It suggests a level of tolerance, open-mindedness, that we don't often see, especially in politics.
It challenges the notion that couples, especially high-profile couples, must always be in lockstep on every issue.
Yeah. It suggests that they actually talk
Yeah.
and are able to disagree respectfully.
Even on issues that are deeply personal,
Potentially divisive?
it humanizes them
It does.
in a way that's often missing from the public narrative.
Makes you wonder what other issues they disagree on and how they navigate those differences.
It also highlights the fact that even within families and close relationships, there can be a diversity of opinions and beliefs.
For sure, it's a good reminder that we shouldn't reduce individuals to simple labels or political ideologies.
And of course, Melania takes the opportunity to promote her book a little bit, encouraging people to read it,
Yeah.
to get more details on her pro-choice stance.
It's a clever marketing tactic,
It is,
capitalizing on the intrigue and controversy.
and it also positions her as someone with her own voice
Yeah.
and a perspective that goes beyond her husband.
Absolutely. She's using this platform to establish herself as a public figure in her own right,
With her own thoughts, her own beliefs.
and then she pivots to a topic that reveals another side of her personality.
What's that?
She starts offering advice to young mothers, raising children in today's society.
A society she describes as challenging.
It's a surprisingly tender moment coming from someone who's often portrayed as aloof or distant,
She's speaking from the heart, drawing on her own experiences as a mother.
offering guidance that goes beyond the political.
Her key message is about leading with love, treating each child as an individual, and prioritizing self-healing.
To avoid passing on trauma,
Yeah.
it's a message that resonates with a lot of parents who are trying to raise children in a world that can feel increasingly divided and uncertain.
It's a reminder that even amidst all the political noise,
All the societal pressure.
the most important thing
Yeah.
is to create a loving and supportive environment.
Absolutely.
And it aligns with her comments about forgiveness and healing.
It does.
It suggests a belief